Welcome to this episode. Most CEOs fail because of three biggest mistakes. In this episode, we're going to be looking at those three biggest mistakes a lot of CEOs and leaders make, and we're going to be exploring together in this conversation to look at how not to make those mistakes and how to lead, how to run an organization effectively and avoid these three mistakes. Welcome to this third episode of the CEO Leadership Strategy Series, where we look at major principles and success principles for leaders and CEO of organizations. And in this episode, like I said, we're looking at three major mistakes that CEOs make and how to make sure that you are not making those mistakes, how to stay focused, how to stay ahead, and how to achieve what you need to achieve for your organization. Let's go on a deep dive together. Thank you. I'm Olumu Alusoyan. I'm a business and life coach. I'm a consultant. I consult for governments, for large corporates, for businesses on growth strategy and how to achieve their corporate goals in an ever-changing business climate and environment. And in this CEO Leadership Strategy Series, we look at key strategies and principles that make organizations successful when they are led by visionary CEOs. And that's what we are looking at today. So welcome to this third episode. Like I said earlier, a lot of CEOs fail because of three mistakes they make that are very common. In this episode, we're going to dive into those three mistakes. We'll go a deep dive to look at each of those three mistakes. Then we'll look at three case studies, two or three case studies. These case studies will help us to analyze and see real life examples where CEOs have made these mistakes and CEOs that have thrived avoiding these mistakes. And when we do that, then we'll now look at the experiences around those case studies and real examples. We'll also look at questions that have been asked, five very important questions that have been asked. I'll be answering them. And in answering these questions, I'll be taking a deep dive into my own experience as a leader, as a CEO, and also looking at experiences and learnings from the business world to actually drive home these points in this deep dive. Welcome again, and let's go into it. So what are these three mistakes that CEOs make? The first mistake is micromanaging. Micromanaging is a very, very common mistake that a lot of CEOs make or leaders make. Before we go, I would like to look at it. What is micromanaging itself? Micromanaging comes from a failure to delegate as a CEO. It's a very common example of challenges that we have in the workplace, where a leader fails to delegate to his team members and is always having to take a lot of decisions that should have been taken at the lower level, despite being or expected to be a visionary leader. And that's one of the challenges with this pitfall. It's micromanagement because when you come to our lower level, you are not supposed to be operating at that lower level as a leader, as a CEO. And there's a tendency for you to want to control everything that is happening at the level of the subordinates. What it will appear you're doing is that you are not allowing them to use their initiative. You are not allowing them to build their confidence, and you are competing with them at the level of leadership that they have, which shouldn't be so. You should have allowed them to actually focus, where you monitor from afar and try to guide them and direct them, build them, coach them, develop trust, and give them the confidence they need to become trusted leaders. And this common signs that you see in leaders that do this is that they will keep checking on the progress, and they are reluctant to delegate. They are reluctant to delegate. They want to take every minute decision, even when it's a decision that can be taken by somebody at a lower level. This is not a very good sign of good leadership, and it means that that CEO or that leader is yet to transcend or transform or transition to a visionary leader that he or she is expected to be. And that's why you are trying to operate at a lower level, trying to, in a way, compete and crowd that space of people at the lower level of management, and this shouldn't be so. So what happens in this case when you are overcrowding and you are micromanaging is that there will be reduced innovation from your team. The team will start feeling bad that you are not allowing them to use their initiative, and it will lead to lower or reduced innovation and creativity. They'll be afraid to take decisions because after all, you'll be there anyway to come and take that decision anytime from now. So they will step back. They will not jump to the plate or step to the plate and take decisions. And they will leave everything to you and wait for you to come and take decision anyway. It's going to lead to low morale from your team. And you don't want that as a leader. You want to be able to instill confidence in your team and actually nurture them to become greater leaders that you have become yourself. And apart from that, apart from low morale and all that, it's going to lead to a lot of bottlenecks in decision making process because nothing will go ahead until they reach out to you, until you come and spell out what you want, what you don't want. That's when things will move ahead. So you find out that leaders that micromanage, they actually impact on their organization negatively. The company is not able to move up. The company will not be innovative as expected. And you find out that the growth of leaders will be stunted because they will not develop the right confidence earlier on. And they will lack the kind of inspiration that they are supposed to be getting from their leader, who is the CEO. Uh, how are the ways that leaders can overcome this? The first thing you can do to address micromanaging is to do the reverse, is to actually empower your team members. You reverse micromanaging by deciding, taking a decision to actually empower them. And the best way to empower your team members is to delegate to them. You delegate activities to them, you delegate tasks to them, and you clearly define roles and responsibilities. And this is set out from when you hire people. When you hire team members, as we talked about in the other video, where we talked about uh, how to think like a CEO. That's the second episode. If you have not watched that episode, please subscribe to the channel, check the videos, and watch the second episode of the CEO Leadership Strategy series. And in that episode, we talked about the three C's. We talked about competence, commitment, and character. When you have used these three C's to actually identify and select your leaders, that means they are competent, they have the educational background, the experience, the know-how, they are committed, they have the capacity to give the work what is required in terms of commitment of time and duty, and they have character. All these three things are verifiable, not from the CV, not from the resume. You have to do background checks, you have to verify, you have to do references, and be sure that everything they claim they can do before you bring them aboard. Then when you bring them aboard, you now start to empower them in job description and duties and all that. Responsibility should be clearly defined, and this delegation is built into those responsibilities. They are your empowerment of your leaders actually starts from how the job description is actually designed. The job description should be designed in such a way to empower them to use their initiative. While the buck stops at your table, they must be given that opportunity to actually use their initiative to take decisions that can be taken at their level. That's how you inspire confidence in them. And you are with them time to time, coaching them, inspiring them, looking at areas where there may be gaps and make sure that you fill in those gaps with your own experience. At the end of the day, you're trying to replace yourself in these your leaders. That's what you're trying to do. And empowerment is one of the ways to overcome micromanaging. The next way you can overcome micromanaging is trust building. And you should have, how do you instill trust? You should have regular briefs with them where you check in on them and you know, allow some autonomy. At the same time, you are still providing support for them. You are looking at how they are faring, looking at decisions they are taking daily, how they arrive at those decisions. If you see any gaps or any deficiency, or you don't like the approach, you can guide them and redirect them. So next time when it happens like this, do that, avoid that approach, use this approach instead. And they will go back and try it and they will see that it works. That will further help you to actually help them to earn your trust and also build that trust over time. Then the next way you can Also, the third way you can reduce micromanaging or eliminate micromanaging is the mindset shift, where you actually move from emphasizing uh, the fact that you have brought in experts with unique skills to handle this job, because you need to let them know that you trust them, you trust the skills they have, you trust the experience of have, and that's why you have selected them. And if you trust them, then you allow them to do the job. You allow them to come in and actually, you know, express themselves, do the job properly, while you stay back and you guide the process and make sure that they achieve what they're supposed to achieve while they're working for you. So the next major mistake that leaders make, three biggest mistakes that CEOs make and leaders make, is avoiding to take tough decisions. The business terrain is not for the faint-hearted. So there will be challenges, there will be unexpected turns, there will be these, challenges that will spring up that you did not plan for. There will be force major. There will be wahalas. Let me put it that way. There will be trouble once in a while. There will be crisis. There is nothing you can do about that. And avoiding to take decisions can actually cause more problems. Like we said in the second video, the second episode, and even in the first episode of the series, that indecisiveness is worse than somebody that takes a bad decision. The person that takes a bad decision can be corrected, can make a U-turn and start going back in the right direction almost immediately. But the person that is indecisive, that refuses to take a decision, can be on the same spot for 10 years and a lot of things can go wrong. So ability to be decisive, decisiveness is a sign of courage, is a sign of strength in a leader. So avoiding to take tough decision is also something that is similar to indecisiveness. You know, indecision can be more damaging than making a mistake, like I've said. So you have to be able to choose not to be afraid of choosing a wrong option anytime you are faced with a difficult situation. Think, be calm, look within yourself, dive deep into your experiences, your competence, your exposure, and look at the best way to address that issue. Not to shy away, not to waste time, not to be indecisive, because at every point in time, your team members are looking at you. They are looking at you to see how you respond to challenges, how you respond to situations as a leader, and that will further inspire them to greatness. It will inspire them to also be a good leader that stays calm, that stays courageous in the face of a challenge, because they watch you see it. Some of these leadership principles and virtue, like we call them, they are caught when you observe somebody ahead of you actually take decisions in the middle of a storm. There is nothing else that teaches better than that. When you observe somebody close to you that is a mentor take decisions, you are there in that situation with them and you see how they respond, you see how they take decisions, you see how they think and how they analyze in the midst of challenges. There is no better teacher than that kind of real life experience. So you want to be able to make sure that you avoid being afraid of choosing a wrong decision. Um, doesn't matter, but it's better for the issue not to be delayed, because you can have lost opportunity, things can escalate, things can go wrong, and then you now dive into a reactive leadership style, which is not inspiring for your team members. Also, avoiding to take tough decisions might actually impact negatively on the business, because it will impede innovation, and once innovation is impeded, you find out that there'll be lost opportunities. There'll be strategic pivots that you're going to miss because you are not able to take those decisions. We will look at companies that face challenges, face um, a crossroad in their business, in their industry, where they have to decide whether they have to pivot from something they are normally used to doing into another realm, into another segment of the business, because the market is changing. Most of this time, these decisions are a risk. You don't know whether those things are going to succeed or not. So you just have to analyze based on the best information and the experience you have. You take a decision and you move forward. And that's how to do that. So avoiding to take tough decisions can negatively impact your business, and it will create a culture of uncertainty in your business, and among your employees. They are not able to trust you. The leadership style is reactive. It doesn't inspire confidence enough. And it can lead to potential stagnation in the business, where there will be a lot of decline in the company performance because you are not able to take appropriate decisions and move ahead. There are times that the decision may not be fully in your power. You might have to reach out to the board to get approval to get some things done for large corporates. So you must be able to present your strong points with evidence, with data, and with a level of strong persuasion, emotional intelligence as expected of a CEO, where you can get the support of the board. For example, if capital needs to be raised, if there needs to be a change in strategy or business model of the business, these things has to be properly explained to the board, and they are buying that the support is needed because they are the official promoters of the business anyway, and they will support you if you can justify that direction is needed, and they have the capacity to achieve that. The last thing that in this avoiding to take tough decisions can cause is that it can lead to stagnation to the point that the business can even wind down. Business can even wind down. So what are the ways we can address this challenge of avoiding to take tough decisions? Number one is that you have to implement data-driven decision making. When you want to make decisions like that, you have to look at the data. What is the data saying from the business and from the market and from the industry? You make decisions based on data so that you are guided carefully. Your decisions is not vague. Your decision is not abstract. You have already analyzed the market. You have looking at figures, and you can justifiably say that this may be a good risk to take. It's because you want to look at performance metrics, you want to look at market trends, you want to look at things that are driving those decisions so that when you make those decisions, you are very sure what you're doing. Secondly, you want to be able to do good risk analysis and scenario planning to look at if I respond this way, what's going to happen? In this event, what is the best way for me to respond? You do a SWOT analysis. You also do a scenario planning. We discussed this in the second episode where I shared how you can do SWOT analysis and scenario planning. Please check that video and make sure that you also watch it if you haven't watched it. So you want to make sure that you do the risk analysis and scenario planning. You want to look at different scenarios. What are the challenges that you're up against, and how should you respond? And if you respond, what will be the outcomes if you respond that way? So those are the things you need to do when you are doing your risk analysis and scenario planning. Then is learning from mistakes. If you have made similar mistakes in the past, it will help you to avoid making the same mistake when you're about to take another tough decision. So in a way, you want to make sure that you've learned from your mistakes so that you don't repeat them again. For example, if you have failed to make a tough decision before and you see the way things played out, how you were left out, how the company stagnated, or you had the risk of the bankruptcy or something happened, you want to avoid that same kind of mistake again when you are faced with a similar tough decision. So mistakes made in the past provide valuable lessons that we should not repeat them. They are learning from each mistake we made in the past. We can draw on those mistakes that we made in the past to actually be more decisive when next we are faced with a challenge or a challenging situation. That will help us to drive momentum and we'll be more confident as a leader as we make those mistakes. The third mistakes I'll be talking about is ignoring company culture. When any leader ignores company culture, the business starts to rot from the inside, from the gut. And I cannot overemphasize the importance of company culture. Company culture are shared values, beliefs, core values, behaviors that shape the core of the company. It's like trying to describe a human being and you describe their attributes, you describe their habits, you describe the virtues that they possess based on your level of interaction with them. That's the same thing for the culture of the company. Those are shared values, beliefs, and behavior that shape and guide the way the company goes about achieving its mission and its vision. So company culture must be taken seriously. For example, what are your company core values? Those core values must be epitomized by you yourself, the CEO. If one of your core values is integrity, in everything you do as a leader, as a CEO, You must demonstrate integrity. Your yes must be yes, your no must be no. You should be transparent, you should be objective, you should be straightforward. There shouldn't be any reason why your team members or your customers should doubt your word, should doubt any communication that comes from you as a CEO, that comes from organization, because you are truly living by those values that you possess yourself. So we want to make sure that you actually uphold the shared values and beliefs and behavior. And you have to know that a healthy culture in an organization is a foundation for long-term success, and employee retention. If as a leader you are not demonstrating, this core foundational trust, you lose your employees, because you will not be able to retain your staff, because they will see through you that you are not practicing what you are preaching as a leader, and they will either emulate that same principle, they will lack integrity, they will start misbehaving, there'll be a lot of malpractice in the company. You will not be able to hold them accountable, because you yourself are not being, you are not straightforward, you are not honest, you are not demonstrating enough integrity. And this must be distilled down to the policies of the company. What are the policies that guide the operations of the company? The way staff are treated, the way customers are treated, and the way people are rewarded with performance. So those are the things that you want to make sure that you distill. The culture must be good. You must demonstrate that the culture is important to you as a CEO, and epitomize that culture, those values, those shared beliefs. Then you also want to you run into the dangers that come from neglecting the culture. At the end of the day, you have a toxic work environment where everything is toxic, because rules are not followed. Rules are not followed, and any organization that ends up not following its own core values and the culture is weak, there will be toxicity in that environment, and this will lead to a large turnover in the employee workforce. There will be low productivity. People will be working under fear, because the system is not transparent, the culture is not strong, and the reputation of that company will start being eroded gradually by what you're doing every day. And without a strong culture, there is no strategic goal that will be achieved. Things will start to fall apart, and there will be misaligned values in the organization. So you want to make sure that you prevent these dangers that come from this neglecting the company culture. And what are the ways we can build this and sustain this good culture in an organization? The first thing to do is to define what are your core values as an organization. What is your mission and what is your vision? You must be able to tie these three things together. What are our core values? You have to define them, and those core values must be used to assess everybody at every point in time. If you are doing your appraisal, you want to select, let me even start from selection of people. When you want to select people, you run through these core values. When you are assessing them, what they've achieved in the past, their performance from the previous organization, their level of competence, their commitment, and their character, you are looking for, similarities of these core values in their previous work experience and the things they are bringing to the table. You want to make sure you try as much as possible to find out whether they actually have these shared values. And that's why at interviews, a lot of questions that I ask, they're trying to bring out all those kind of, when somebody actually, understand those kind of values and he has actually lived by those values before. So a lot of situational questions are asked where the person is given a challenge to say, when you are faced with a challenge in the past, how did you respond? How did you do this? And you're able to see whether that person actually epitomizes those values or not. Well, I know that some people might be able to pretend and deceive and get away with it. But most of the time, these things come true. You'll be able to read through them, because most of the time, people will come out with who they are, and you will see it very, very easily. Even when people come into your organization, you now have a proper orientation where you go over these core values and you stress the importance very clearly. What's the importance of this corporate culture? You communicate these values to them, to every team member, and you make them understand that these things are cardinal. Is at the core of what you do as an organization. This is who we are, and everybody needs to epitomize these values in everything we do. The second way to actually build and sustain a good company culture is to have regular employee engagements. You need to discuss methods, you know, for feedback. How do you get feedback from the employees? There must be a system where employees are able to give you feedback regularly, consistently, without any brick wall, without any hindrance. If there is too much of hierarchical structure, you might need to break it down a bit so that people are able to come out. They're able to speak. They're able to volunteer themselves and give feedback whenever it's necessary. You also want to make sure that you do leadership modeling where you demonstrate what leadership is and you encourage leaders to embody the culture of the organization. Any culture you want to see people practice and follow, you yourself, first as a leader, you have to first embody that culture, that value, and it will be easy for other people to now follow and also replicate. Because as leaders, people are able to follow us, they watch us, they take after us, and we are the ones that can easily model this culture to them. So these are the three ways you can actually build and sustain a good company culture. Make sure that your core values, mission, and vision are properly discussed. It's part of the core orientation for every staff that comes to the company. At every opportunity, these things are discussed, these things are reviewed, and you're actually measuring everybody's performance and attitude and behavior by this company culture. And whenever there is a deviation, there must be a strong realignment. And there must be disciplinary actions to make sure that people are aligned back to that culture. Not just knowing what the culture is, they need to know what the importance is for the strategic goal of the organization, for the reputation of the organization. The second is employee engagement. And the third, like I said, is leadership modeling, where you yourself epitomize these values, this culture, and you also train other leaders to do it. And is now cascaded to the bottom. These are the three major mistakes, and these are the ways to manage those mistakes. So in this segment now, we're going to be looking at the case studies. We look at case studies and we discuss issues around them before I take the questions that have been asked. The first is a story of a company, a tech firm where the CEOs constant oversight, stifle the creative and innovative, you know, processing of the talented workforce. The CEO you know, was micromanaging the company members, was micromanaging the staff, and it actually affected the creativity of this company to the point that the company actually, they went bankrupt. They did not survive. And I want to share a very real life example. This story, the name of the company is with health. But I want to share a story of a company that everybody can resonate with. If you remember what happened between BlackBerry and Apple, once again, if you've not listened to the first and second episode of this series, please go and watch it. I delved into that case study very, very deeply. BlackBerry, the leaders in BlackBerry, refused to embrace technology, despite the fact that they knew that Apple was coming up with a phone that was going to have a wider screen. They were going to take off all the keypads. They got that intelligence very early, but they still refused to take that risk because they were just stuck on those lovely keypads that BlackBerry was known for. And they felt that it would be catastrophic for them to take out those keypads. They felt that the brand will be eroded, customers may not like it, and they were not ready to take the risk. If I was in that shoe, I would have come up with two models, one without it, one with it at the same time, and I will be able to test how the market will respond to it, and I will not allow Apple to beat me to that new innovation. So they got wind of it on time. Not that they didn't get wind of it on time, they got wind of it, but they refused. There were a lot of workers in BlackBerry that came with that insight. And the CEO and the leaders at that time, they were taking the quicker decisions, refused to take that risk. And Apple went with it, and the blow was deafening. And that company, BlackBerry, has not survived to today. So despite having a strong team, if there is an overbearing management style that does not allow people to be innovative, doesn't allow their voice to be heard, there will be burnout, there will be high turnover. Most of the innovative and creative people will leave the organization. And at the end of the day, you are seeding your price tag, people that you have grown, people that you are invested in. You're actually seeding them to the competition. And when you see them to the competition, they will have more competitive advantage, and they will actually, they will take over from you. So the takeaway from this is that you have to trust your employees because there are people you have hired, they're experts at their level to do their job. You have to delegate to them and give them the responsibility to unlock the innovation, that is inside them and drive the growth for you. You just steering the ship. You're able to guide them. This is where we are headed. They will respond because they are smart people. And where they are able to express themselves, they will respond and they will bring out their creative and innovative powers and actually achieve a lot for the organization. Uh, so we'll move on to the second case study. We're going to be looking at paralysis of indecision, how indecision can lead to paralysis in an organization. And there's a story of a company that faced a critical product performance issue, and the CEO hesitated in making a pivoting, you know, direction. He was afraid of the consequences of pivoting because a lot of businesses at some point in time will be faced with the consideration to actually pivot. What do you do as a CEO at that point in time? You are going to a terrain that you have not been before, and but you have a nudge in your mind based on your knowledge that technology, with advancing in technology and disruption, things may be headed this way. While you are used to doing things the traditional way, you have to understand that there will continue to be advances in every industry. Technology will continue to change the way business is done, business models are run in every industry. So you must be ready to embrace change. As we speak today, AI is redefining the way business is done in every industry. Every industry is looking for a way to pivot in a way to accommodate AI so that they can do what they are doing faster, better, more efficiently, and deliver it at a lower cost and a high level of profitability. So you are not left out regardless of the industry you are in. You need to find a way to embrace technology, work with it, find a way to infuse into your business, embrace that change, carry your staff along, allow them to innovate around technology, and you move to the next level. So you find in that situation I painted, the delay in making a decision, because of that critical product performance issue, the CEO delayed in making that decision. It allowed competitors to actually capture the market. And, the market share was taken over. Most of the market share was taken over by these competitors that took the risk. And the company was left to scramble for what was left in the industry. This underscores the fact that inaction, indecisiveness does not help. And it is always more damaging than a wrong decision. So it's better for you as a leader to take a wrong decision quickly, learn your mistake, and retract your steps than for you to be indecisive. This is very, very important. So the key takeaway from this story is that, you know, you need to take a decision quickly as a CEO. I'm not saying your decision should not be guided by data and all that, but you need to be decisive. And when you delay, when you're indecisive, it may lead to suboptimal performance, and it propels the organization, backwards in a way. But when you take decision immediately, decisively, most of the time the organization is able to progress. If you're going to learn, you learn immediately, and you trace your steps. And these are invaluable lessons to a CEO. The ability to take a decision and move. I also like to share another story of when a company experiences rapid growth, and the growth is so rapid, and they have not really built the culture of that organization. It will appear as if they do not deserve that growth. Let me say it again. When a company, you know, when a company is facing very quick, rapid growth, and the culture in that organization is not prepared for that growth because they've not actually built and distilled down their culture to everybody in the organization, it will appear as if they do not deserve that growth. That's what happens in most organizations. So you want to make sure that you define the culture of the organization very heavily, and you continue to do it for anybody that comes, a proper orientation program. You continue to go over it again. You do leadership modeling that we have discussed. You demonstrate how to epitomize this culture. There are policies around maintaining and making sure that this culture is ingrained at all levels. Then as the company expands, as the company grows, because the culture is ingrained in everywhere in the system. For example, culture of integrity, innovation, teamwork, hard work, resilience, customer service, research and development, wherever needed, wherever your culture, your values are. If you drive it enough, that is proper orientation, continuous training, continuous coaching, continuous leadership modeling from the top to the bottom, you will find out that as you are making progress as a company, the culture will further reinforce that success and to help you to actually sustain the success, the new height of success that you are attaining as a company. But if that culture is not well ingrained, the culture is not well formed, is not well distilled, is not well modeled by leadership, then you are just creating doomsday. You will have a lot of success, but you'll not be able to maintain it. A lot of things will go wrong. There will be chaos, there will be high turnover, there will be misaligned values, and you find out that it will tarnish the brand reputation at the end of the day and long-term profitability and sustainability of the company. So the takeaway from this story is that you have to reinforce, the critical importance of cultivating a positive, cohesive culture in your organization. And that culture must support strategic goals and employee well-being. And you must encourage employees to actually also epitomize these values and live it out so that as you are making progress, as you're achieving success, the culture is there to sustain that success and to drive it to a higher level. I believe I'll be able to share those stories to actually bring up this point that these things are real life stories that we can relate with. Culture is very powerful. Our ability to take decisions is very powerful. I also make sure that you are also able to model these things, and your staff and your team members can actually now follow in those leadership modeling and also act on it. And the policies of the company was very clear. You are big on those things. There are consequences when people, despite being trained, going through orientation, they never they deviate away from the culture of the organization, and they take decisions that are against the culture of the organization. There must be penalties. There must be consequences for those kind of behaviors, and you don't reward those kind of behaviors. There should be penalties and consequences for them. You reward behaviors that are in alignment with your company values, your company beliefs, and the culture of the organization. So we've come to the section where I get to answer questions that I've received, and I've received 5 questions. And the first one is, how do you as a CEO, as a leader, know if you are micromanaging? Uh, for me, I would say you look out for signs of constant oversight on every detail. If you are trying to check every little detail, sign off on every little thing that people at your lower level should be doing, and you have reluctance, you have this hesitation to let team members make decisions, then you need to know that you are micromanaging. Most of the time, last minute changes, you are interfering with things that they should have, decisions that they should have made on their own. Then you notice that after some time, you may also notice that the creativity, innovation of the team members will start to diminish. They start to lose morale. Some of them might complain to you easily. If you're the kind of leader that they are afraid to talk to, they will not complain to you. They will be talking to other people. You may hide it through third persons and third parties. But if you have created, and that's why you should create an open door policy, no matter how big you are in the organization, your team members, even junior staff, should be able to reach out to you and actually express their mind, tell you what they think should be done well, or things they feel aren't going right in the organization. And you'll be able to get that feedback from them from time to time. So that way, if you notice that you have to do those things, you are finding it difficult to delegate, then that's a sign that you're micromanaging. The second sign you know is that if you are afraid of making wrong decisions as a leader, then you know that you are probably micromanaging. You have to understand that inaction, like I said, indecisiveness is more harmful than making wrong decisions. So you make sure you use data more often, trust your leaders to make mistakes, guide them when they make mistakes, but allow them to take decisions. And remember that every decision is a learning opportunity for you and your leaders. And that will refine your judgment and the judgment of your leaders over time. So as your leaders, as you delegate to them, whenever they make mistakes, use that mistake as a learning point so that next time they know what not to do. Because one of the most powerful ways to know what to do is to know what not to do. And those are the powers of mistakes. Mistakes show us how not to do something. So if you are afraid of making mistakes, you will not know how not to do a lot of things. I'm not trying to encourage people to make mistakes, but the truth about it is that you cannot succeed without trying and without failing. That's the truth. The most important thing is that learn from your failures and make sure you don't repeat it again. You know, and if you're afraid of making wrong decisions, then you have to change. You have to be able to, make more decisive decisions. I remember that every decision is a learning opportunity, like I said. You know, and you can. Another question is, what if I'm afraid of making a wrong decision? You know, and I've just answered that question. Don't be afraid to make a wrong decision. Indecisiveness is worse than making a wrong decision. So learn from the mistakes and move ahead. So the third question is, how can I actively build a strong company culture? You know, how can I actively build a strong company culture? From my own experience, the best way to build a strong company culture is to communicate what that culture is. That's the first thing you need to do as a leader, is communication. You must be able to explain to your team members what that culture really is. Then, what is the importance of that culture? For example, what are your core values as an organization? What are your core values? What are your beliefs? What are your shared values in the organization? You need to communicate what it means. For example, if it's integrity, what does integrity mean to you as a company? What does passion mean to you as a company? What does teamwork, innovation mean to you as a company? What does empathy mean to you as a company? These are popular core values that are branded by a lot of companies. You must be able to communicate it. Then you must be able to do leadership modeling. Epitomize these things yourself, and every leader from top to bottom must epitomize these core values. And these core values are looked at appraisal, in the way people are assessed, the way people are praised, and you reward every of these behaviors that are in line with these core values. And any behavior that had variance, there will be consequences and penalties for them. That's the way to instill a good company culture. So you communicate it and you encourage them, when you have team building activities, to actually practice it. You explain the importance to them and you allow them to contribute to actually developing this. And when you are hiring people, you look out for a culture fit. People that actually, from their experiences, their competence, their commitment, their character, you look for things that align with your core values in when you're assessing them at the interviews, not just what is on the CV. That's where you do checks, background checks. If somebody says I have a degree, confirm whether he has that degree. Do a background check to confirm that is true. Once you confirm that is integrity. What he said he has it. I worked in this place for social number. Is it true? What was his performance there or our performance there? Does he have a good report from that company, good reference for that company? Those are the ways you can find out if someone aligns. So by the time they are responding, most of the time the company will touch on some of these core values and let you know whether that person epitomized those core values while he was with them or not. And that's the way to handle that. The fourth question is, what are some effective strategies for delegation? Very, very important question. The first thing is task chunking approach. You want to break down your responsibility as a CEO and set defined objectives for your leaders and delegate those tasks to them. So number one, the task, you divide it. You set objectives for each of those tasks and you assign it to your leaders. When you're doing that, you are leveraging on their strengths. Then when they come back, if you see any area of weaknesses in their delivery of those tasks, then that's where coaching comes in. That's where training comes in. You guide them so that when they go back, they do those things better. And over time, you're able to balance your oversight of your team members where you give them autonomy, but you have actually built them up to actually be able to face situations that come their way. Yeah, you've broken down the tasks with clear objectives. They know what they are achieving and they know why they are achieving it, and that makes it easier for them to do very well on the task. That's how to break down delegation. Then the last question: how do I turn around a failing culture in my organization? That's very, very important. For example, you take over a role or you are leading a company and things start going the negative way. You want to know how to turn around the culture. The first thing is that you must first accept that the problem exists. Because the number two is that awareness. First thing is that awareness helps to solve a lot of problems. If somebody has a problem, if he's aware that he has that problem is already solved. That's the truth. That's one of the the great principles in managing challenges. The first is awareness. So you have to be honest with yourself that the challenge actually exists in the organization. And the way you can do this is to do an audit. Do an audit of your current organizational culture. And when you do an audit, you'll be able to get feedback from your employees. You can also get feedback from your customers and get feedback from all stakeholders that your company relates with. When you get this feedback, it will give you a true idea. And this feedback must be unbiased. It must be unbiased. When you get this feedback, it helps you to identify the key pain points where the issues are. Then you cannot develop a plan. You can develop a plan that will include leadership training, that may include restructuring, team dynamics. You study the team dynamics so that you can actually restructure the team. You'll be able to see the weaknesses of some of the leaders. You address those weaknesses through coaching, through leadership training, through restructuring, and you can consult with culture experts, HR experts that actually have very good experience in culture. But you as a leader, you must lead. You must epitomize this culture yourself and make sure that you are able to address this issue after the audit. Once you do the audit, you know where the issues are. Then you ask yourself the question, am I a contributor to this problem? If you are a contributor, you know that you have to change yourself because the change must come from the top. And when the change comes from the top, it's easier because people usually are good followers. So once the leader leads well and communicates well, and the system and the policies are done in such a way that it will reward people that align with the culture, and there will be consequences for people that don't align with the culture after they've been properly trained, after they've gotten the importance of this culture, and the policies should be followed within the habits of the Lord, and people that refuse to align with the culture should actually be shown the way out of the organization. Because once you have done the right thing, the proper orientation, proper guidance, proper training, then anybody that is not following the culture should be excused out of the organization, so that you retain people that have actually accepted the culture and are actually living by it. And those are the ways that you can address a company culture that is going wrong. Do an audit, be honest with yourself, make sure that you respond to the issue, and make sure that you address it, as a leader. So as a leader, you want to make sure that you address all these issues and make sure that you address all those three things we've said that may lead to a to lack of sustainability in organization. You want to make sure that you avoid these three major mistakes: avoid micromanaging, avoid not taking the wrong decisions, or avoid not taking tough decisions, and avoid not following a good company culture. So once you avoid these three mistakes as a leader, you achieve greatness for your company, and you live with strength, you live with dignity. It will be easy for them to follow you as a leader. And that's how we are wrapping up this episode of of the CEO Leadership Strategy series. And it's been wonderful on this top episode. We looked at the three biggest mistakes of CEOs. And those mistakes were micromanaging, avoiding to take tough decisions, and not following the company culture. And we have seen in this episode how these three mistakes can actually be very negative for a company. And as a leader, you want to make sure you understand what these mistakes are. You want to prevent these mistakes from occurring in your organization. And you want to lead with confidence. You want to live as a visionary. Having avoided all these mistakes, you want to coach. You want to lead your team members so that they become better leaders, by watching you model, the right culture to them. So most organizations will actually do well when they identify all these three mistakes, they avoid them, then they improve on addressing what will have happened if they didn't avoid them. And they strengthen the team, they delegate well, stop micromanaging, clear responsibilities, good objectives, guide them, task chunking, break the tasks down in a way that is easy for your team members to achieve and to actually meet the deliverables. The KPIs must be clearly set. It must be realistic. It must be things that are realistic. It must be done within the ambit of the law with clear policies of what the rewards are for achieving those key performance indicators. And once they achieve those key performance indicators, there should be rewards. The rewards should be transparent. That also ties in with the culture of the organization. Because what also happens in some organizations is that when people perform very well, they are not rewarded. And at times, people that don't perform so well are rewarded. So there's some form of favoritism. That means there's no transparency. The culture practice favoritism, it's politicking and all that in the system. And when you have that challenge, people will start having issues. So keeping the company culture is very important. And I believe that this episode will be able to address how to do this and to avoid these mistakes. And the case studies too was able to drive home this point. We looked at Apple under Steve Jobs versus BlackBerry, what they did differently. Also looked at those two stories of those companies and how a company can move, uh, make sure that their culture is strong enough to support the successes that they have in the organization. When you have a good company culture and you're succeeding, the culture will help you to actually sustain that success as you move ahead. So as you move ahead, I want to encourage you to listen to other videos in the series that you might have missed. Tag a manager, a CEO, or a leader that may need this. Share this video. Comment in the comment section. Tell me what you think about what you have listened to today. If it inspired you, we can actually help your organization to actually achieve all those things by our trainings, by our consulting practice, where we consult for businesses on board strategy, company strategy, growth strategy, and also in our focus areas. You can check that out in the bio and look at all the focus areas. You can look at where we can be of value to your company, organization, or to you as a person, as a business and life coach. So I want to thank you. If you have stayed up to this time in this video, I want to really thank you. So much gratitude. I appreciate you for coming on this journey with us. Please comment. Let us know what you are learning from um, this series and the kind of questions you like to ask. The reason why I would like you to ask questions is that these questions might help me to actually develop a new series to address very important things following your feedback from listening to the series. Once again, I'm Olumu Alusanya. I'm a consultant, business and life coach. I consult for governments, large corporates, and companies on growth strategy and different focus area like technology, information security, healthcare, finance and policy, and board strategy, company growth strategy. And I would like to see you in the next video. The next episode is the fourth in the series. Look out for it. It's going to premiere very soon. And let's keep doing this together. Let's keep encouraging one another. Let's share it to people that will need it. And I will see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.